We've all seen the movies. The guy with a high IQ is usually a cold, calculating machine who can solve a Rubik's Cube in 4 seconds while reciting the digits of pi. He's always the smartest person in the room, and he definitely knows it. But in reality, high intelligence usually feels a lot less like a superpower and a lot more like a weird, slightly inconvenient way of experiencing the world. It's not about having all the answers. Most of the time, it's about having too many questions. If you've ever felt like your brain has too many tabs open, or you've been told you're overthinking something that feels perfectly simple to you, we need to talk. Because those quirks you've been apologizing for might actually be the clearest signs of a highly complex mind. There's a specific kind of humor that comes with a fast-moving brain. The "wait, what?" joke. This usually happens when you make a connection between two things that are light years apart, and you say it out loud, expecting a laugh. Instead, you get a room full of blank stares. Then, about 10 seconds later, one person goes.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Research often links high intelligence to a dark or abstract sense of humor. It's because humor is essentially a surprise of the mind.
Random guy. Hello?
It's the ability to see a hidden relationship between two unrelated things. If you find yourself laughing at the absurdity of a situation that no one else seems to notice, or if your jokes require a map for people to follow, your brain is likely operating on a different frequency. You aren't weird, you're just seeing the punchline before everyone else sees the setup. Ironically, the more you know, the more you feel like you don't know anything at all. This is the classic Dunning-Kruger effect, but in reverse. When you have a high IQ, you are painfully aware of the vastness of the universe. You see the gaps in your own logic. You see how much more there is to learn about every single topic. Because of this, you're rarely the loudest person in the room, claiming to be an expert. You're usually the one in the back, listening and thinking, I really need to read more about that. It's a strange paradox. The smarter you are, the more you feel like a fraud. You think everyone else has it figured out, while you're just over here questioning the foundational principles of reality. But that humility, that constant nagging curiosity, is the hallmark of a truly high-functioning mind. In a world that prizes the grind, having a high IQ often makes you look like a world-class procrastinator. You might spend hours just staring out a window, or pacing your room, or falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about 14th century agriculture. To an outsider, you're doing nothing. To you, your brain is doing a heavy lifting session. High intelligence requires a massive amount of incubation time. Your subconscious needs space to chew on information and find the patterns. If you feel a physical need for solitude and silence after a long day of social interaction, it's not just introversion. It's your processor cooling down. Your brain takes in so much more data than the average person. Nuances in tone, subtle contradictions, complex ideas, that it eventually reaches a system-busy state. You don't need a break from people. You need a break from the input. You probably think you're messy or undisciplined. You look at your desk or that half-finished hobby in the corner of your room and you feel a bit of guilt. You think, I should be more organized. But here's the thing. Highly intelligent brains are built for pattern recognition, not necessarily for filling papers. When your mind is constantly scanning for the next connection or the next deep dive, the physical world starts to fade into the background. A messy desk isn't a sign of laziness. It's often a sign that your mental real estate is being used for something more interesting than color grading your pens. You aren't ignoring the mess, you're just prioritizing a complex problem in your head. It's a trait called cognitive flexibility. Your brain is happy to let the small stuff slide if it means it can stay submerged in a big idea. Have you ever been in a meeting or a conversation where someone asks a straightforward question and everyone else answers in 2 seconds, but you're sitting there paralyzed? Someone asks, do you like this movie? And your brain immediately starts a three-way debate. You're thinking about the pacing, the lightning, the subtext of the dialogue, and whether the ending was a metaphor for the director's childhood. By the time you say it was okay, everyone is looking at you like you're glitching. This isn't indecision, it's depth. High intelligence often means you see the nodes of a situation. You see how one thing connects to 5 other things. While other people see a straight line, you see a web. You aren't being difficult, you just have a lower tolerance for oversimplification. You know that it depends is almost always the most honest answer. Having a high IQ doesn't make you better than anyone else. It doesn't mean you're destined for a Nobel Prize or that you're above the messy, human parts of life. In fact, it often makes those parts messier. It just means your internal world is a bit louder and a bit more complex. It means you're weird to look for the why behind the what. If you recognize yourself in these points, stop trying to fix your messy desk or your long-winded answers. Stop feeling guilty for needing hours of silence or for having a sense of humor that needs a disclaimer. Your brain isn't broken, it's just deep. And while depth can be exhausting, it's also where all the interesting stuff happens.